This is where the end began. My company was patrolling the forests near Zul'Aman when we received word of the Scourge invasion. We were wholly unprepared for what we encountered. Quel'Thalas had enjoyed years of idyllic peace, and suddenly, we were facing death itself. I lost my eye in that battle, and would have lost my life were it not for Haldoran. Words cannot describe the devastation our people suffered that day. That any of us survived to tell the tale is a miracle. One that we cannot afford to waste.
The elven lands of Quel'Thalas were thought to be impenetrable, protected by a magical barrier powered by runestones etched with magical symbols of power. But during the events of Warcraft 3, the barrier was disabled and Arthas Menethil and his Scourge army invaded. During the assault, 90% of the elves were slaughtered in just a few days. Their king, Anasterian Sunstrider, was dead. The highest-ranking members of their military, like Sylvanas Windrunner, were dead. And worst of all, their powerful font of energy was corrupted, leaving the elves with no source of power to feed from. Prince of Quel'Thalas, Kael'thas Sunstrider, was absent during the invasion, but when he arrived, the first thing he did was blow up the corrupted Sunwell before it destroyed the land. He also addressed the remaining elven survivors. The mass slaughter the High Elves just experienced would fundamentally change their society. From this point forward, Quel'Thalas would not have a king, and they'd rename themselves to the Blood Elves to reflect the loss of life that they had just suffered. Now quickly, repaint the whole city to reflect our new aesthetic! Kael'thas then planned to leave with a small force of soldiers to go fight the Scourge with the Alliance. But before he left, he needed to appoint someone as Regent Lord of the Kingdom. Okay, let's see who's, not dead. No. 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 Okay, well, you! Yeah, you in the back. You get to be Regent Lord of Quel'Thalas while I'm gone. Okay, everyone. Salama, Ashabalama, Adumalama, Dalilama Dore, everybody. See you later. Bye. Huh? In Kael'thas' absence, Lor'themar Theron was tasked with being the temporary ruler of Quel'Thalas. But here's the thing. Lor'themar is not a politician. Before being suddenly thrusted into this responsibility, he was Ranger Lord of the Farstriders. But suddenly, he has a duty that he never asked for but is obligated to participate in. Because, I mean, like, who else is gonna do it? Everyone's dead.
I am a ranger, not a politician. But like it or not, the mantle of leadership has fallen on my shoulders. For this reason, I trust in your discretion.
I will do my duty. The Farstriders stand ready.
Lor'themar's close friend, Haldoran Brightwing, was promoted to Ranger General of Silvermoon and assisted in leading the kingdom in the prince's absence. But the reality is, neither of them had the best history to prove they were going to be good leaders. The elves of Quel'Thalas had a long-running rivalry with the Amani trolls in their lands. Back during the Second War, Haldoran captured their leader, Zul'jin, and instead of killing him, he tortured him, removing one of his eyes and savoring the kill for Lor'themar. Zul'jin would eventually escape by cutting off his own arm, and developed an even greater hatred for the elves, and heightened the cycle of violence between the races. And the big mistake Lor'themar made? Well, you know how the Scourge disabled the magical barrier surrounding Quel'Thalas? Well, they were able to achieve that from a man on the inside, named Darkon Drathir, who learned how to disable the runestones from Lor'themar. Darkon then used this knowledge to disable the barrier, and then the Scourge invaded. So Lor'themar has to deal with the fact that 90% of his people dying was kind of his fault, and has to make sure that his overwhelming sense of guilt just doesn't get in the way of his new responsibility as a leader. But despite Haldoran and Lor'themar's mistakes, they realized that being a true leader is not about making the right decision every time. I mean, sure, sometimes you make mistakes and 90% of the people die. But what makes a great leader is about pressing on despite making the wrong decisions and learning from them and adapting.
As Regent Lord of Quel'Thalas, I will defend my people against any who would do us harm.
Meanwhile, Kael'thas is helping fight the Scourge with the Alliance, but it isn't going exactly according to plan. Blood Elf forces were tasked by the Alliance to be positioned on the front lines of the war against insurmountable odds. On the brink of utter defeat, Lady Vosh and her Naga appeared, and Kael'thas and his Blood Elves accepted their assistance in fighting back the Scourge, which led the Alliance to assume that the Blood Elves were traitors and were later thrown in jail in Dalaran, but they'd later escape. Okay, so clearly the Alliance isn't going to help them and are just kicking the elves while they're down. So Kael'thas leaves with Lady Vosh to go to the twisted, magic-filled world of Outland and join Illidan. Now, Illidan and Lady Vosh aren't particularly the nicest, morally upstanding people to associate with, but Kael'thas is running out of options, and the clock is ticking. Because back home in Quel'Thalas, the Blood Elves were facing a serious problem. Previously, the elves had used the Sunwell as an unlimited source of arcane to fuel their magic. It was an incredibly powerful, and more importantly, addictive source of power. But since the Sunwell was corrupted and destroyed, they were kind of cut off from their addictive magic, which could spell a total collapse of the kingdom if not addressed.
I serve Silvermoon for Quel'Thalas.
Grand Magister Romath arrives in Silvermoon. The Magister was a high-ranking advisor to Prince Kael'thas, who had traveled with him to Outland, but now he was back with great news. The first discovery he revealed from Prince Kael'thas' field trip were these powerful containers of energy called Burning Crystals, which could be used to power the floating buildings around Quel'Thalas. But the part that he left out of the explanation was that they were fueled by Fel, and its radiating energy turns the Blood Elf's eyes green. What's funny is that, as the lore is written right now, the common people didn't realize these burning crystals were fueled by Fel, despite them burning with green fire and having cartoonishly evil, demonic eyes. Next, he taught the elves to siphon magic from living things to satiate their addiction. Now, what he didn't mention is that he learned this from Illidan, who was sucking magic out of demons. And instead, he attributed the discovery to Kael'thas, glory be to his name, and that his time in Outland was just going great. And while learning the concept of mana tapping was amazing, some elves didn't have the self-control to regulate the siphoning of mana and gorge themselves on it. This would corrupt them and they'd turn into what would be called the Wretched. And others were not all about this new method of siphoning magic. I mean, it involves the killing of innocent creatures and you can overdose on it, and we don't even really need this magic to survive. Well, in response, Lor'themar said, well, if you don't like it, you can get the f*** out! At this point, Quel'Thalas cannot function as a fractured nation, so if you don't like it, you can leave. And these elves, not gelling with this new opportunity for Quel'Thalas, were exiled. It's now the Burning Crusade, and Blood Elves have fully adopted the discoveries introduced by Romath. But an important detail about Blood Elves is that they aren't sucking magic out of creatures and using Fel crystals because they're evil. Okay, well, some of them are evil, but really they're doing these morally dubious things out of necessity. To further their dubious nature, Kael'thas sent back a Naru called Muru, which the Blood Elves forcefully ripped the power from to harness its holy energy. This abuse and enslavement of a godlike, light-based creature was incredibly controversial. Haldoran Brightwing was extremely opposed to the idea, while High Magister Romath said it was absolutely necessary. Lor'themar observed both sides of the argument. One opinion was from the honorable, virtuous Farstriders, and the other a magister who's willing to do anything for the Blood Elf's survival. Ultimately, Lor'themar came to the conclusion that while imprisoning Muru could not be justified morally, the benefit of enslaving a Naru was a massive boon to the Sin'dorei in their continued fight to defend their lands. Because they're still dealing with Amani troll harassment, their own people losing their sanity, and most importantly, lingering forces of Scourge constantly threatening their survival. And to make matters worse, Lor'themar receives reports that Kael'thas's followers on Outland are becoming addicted to fell magic and defecting to the Legion. This isn't good. Between this and the local problems in Quel'Thalas, Lor'themar realizes that he needs allies, and fast.
I have no time for games.
Sylvanas Windrunner, former Ranger General and now Banshee Queen of the Forsaken, offers aid to the Blood Elves. During the Scourge invasion, Sylvanas was slain by Arthas while defending the Elven lands. She was later raised as a Banshee and forced to slay her own people. Now she has broken free from the Scourge's control and wants to offer aid to her former kingdom. But the Banshee Queen's mysterious motives might not be exclusively virtuous now, and Lor'themar's advisors are suspicious of her true intentions.
Never!
But the Blood Elves are in no position to be picky, and Lor'themar accepts the Dark Lady's aid. After all, she was the former Ranger General.
Sylvanas Windrunner was our kingdom's protector. Had she and her rangers not met Arthas with such fierce resistance, our people might no longer exist. She paid the ultimate price, so that enough of us might escape to rebuild our fallen kingdom. When Arthas raised her as a banshee and turned her against Quel'Thalas, it broke all our hearts. I've had my share of disagreements with Sylvanas, but I will never forget her sacrifice. She was the Ranger General of Silvermoon. Nothing will ever change that.
Player characters venture into the Ghostlands, working alongside their fellow Blood Elves and Forsaken to help quell the lingering undead threat. During their questing, they kill Dar'Khan Drathir, that guy that betrayed Quel'Thalas and disabled the barrier. But this isn't the first time he died. The first time he died was in the Blood of the Highborn short story. The second time he died was explained in the Sunwell trilogy. This is a manga series released in 2007, and while I think the art style of the series is cool, it doesn't feel distinctly Warcraft, and certain panels look like thumbnails for Nightcore remixes more than anything else. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up this manga series is that there's a character in the story that is unfortunately more important than Dar'Khan Drathir. It's Anvina Teague. Now, what makes Anvina so important is that she is the remaining energies of the Sunwell, who has manifested into a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, beautiful young woman.
はじめまして、アンビナティグです。よろしくね。私はサンメルですよ。
Lor'themar, Anvina Teague, and others team up and kill Dar'Khan, and Anvina burns him alive in one of the most graphic images ever produced in Warcraft media.
なんでやねん。なんで私はここにいるの?
The identity of Anvina is a closely kept secret, and she's hidden from the outside world by Lor'themar. She was far too powerful of an asset, and even Kael'thas didn't know about her existence. Meanwhile, negotiations are made with Horde ambassadors, and the Blood Elves join the faction.
Sure thing.
Because despite their well-kept appearance, they fit the archetype of being down-on-their-luck outcasts like the rest of the faction's members. But not all Blood Elves wanted to join the Horde. In-game, there's a pair of elves protesting the idea of Quel'Thalas joining the Horde and the new methods of satiating their magical addiction. But a fractured nation cannot survive, and these detractors must be handled appropriately. So Magisters spawn in and mind control the protesters, forcing them to be supportive in this new chapter for the Blood Elves. Meanwhile, on Outland, it's not getting any better, and Kael'thas and his loyal followers fully become addicted to fell magic and devote themselves to the Burning Legion. Lor'themar and his advisors could not believe that their prince could be led so astray. First, they scrambled to send word to Kael'thas of the existence of Anvina, that not all hope was lost, and the answer to their addiction was not fell magic. But the message was intercepted by the Legion, and as Kael'thas fell further into his insanity, Quel'Thalas would have to declare war upon their prince, and he's defeated in the Tempest Keep raid.
Tempest Keep was merely a setback.
Kael'thas was resurrected with fell magic because traitorous elves just can't stay dead in the Warcraft universe for some reason, and the last patch of the Burning Crusade has Kael'thas returning to Quel'Thalas with his fell-infused followers who believe his corruptive magic and the Burning Legion are the solution to the Blood Elves' addiction. Kael'thas, now fully corrupted, discovers the existence of Anvina Teague and uses her to reactivate the Sunwell and summon his lord, Kil'jaeden. And you know how this ends. Kael'thas is killed for the second time, and the summoning of Kil'jaeden is interrupted. Anvina sacrifices herself to defeat the Burning Legion commander, and in the aftermath of the raid, the Heart of Muru, that Naru that the Blood Elves had locked in their basement, is used to empower the Sunwell once again. And woohoo! The Sunwell is restored, this time with arcane and holy magic. So Blood Elves don't have to use their burning fell crystals or suck magic from living beings, and the influence of the Sunwell turns some of their eyes a glowing gold. And while it's nice for the story of the Blood Elves to advance, I really did enjoy the characterization of a shattered kingdom forced to do morally dubious things in order to survive. And it gave them a sort of edginess that made them fit really well into the rough and tumble horde without it feeling forced. I also think it's really funny Blood Elf lore can be used as an allegory for real-life addiction, with its references to binging and overdosing, abstinence, and consuming dangerous substances to chase after a high. But the solution to all of these problems is just unlimited holy drugs. After the Burning Crusade, the Blood Elves are in a much better position. But just because the Sunwell has returned doesn't mean that 90% of their population isn't dead. They also have to deal with the many threats around their kingdom and the aftermath of their former prince's invasion. And with the death of Kael'thas, the Sunstrider dynasty was extinguished, leaving Lor'themar as the ruler. Which was a leadership position that was supposed to be temporary. And yet, even now he maintains the title of Regent Lord, and not king out of respect for the dynasty before him.
My people, who have suffered through so many challenges and betrayals, look to me to secure their future. All will know the power and glory of the Sin'dorei.
The next chunk of lore comes from the short story In the Shadow of the Sun, which is set just before the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. The cool thing about the short story is that it was actually written for Blizzard's 2008 Global Creative Writing Contest. Later in 2012, the short story would be publicized, meaning that this is fan fiction that was retroactively made canon.
My lord, the Kirin Tor needs your aid.
In the story, Aethys Sunreaver, member of the Kirin Tor, visits Silvermoon after several of his letters went unanswered by Lor'themar. Aethys explains that the Nexus War is brewing in Northrend, a war between mages and crazed blue dragons, and asks Quel'Thalas for aid in the matter. Additionally, it would be an opportunity to mend the relationship between the two factions.
Never!
Lor'themar, and especially Romath, were not that interested. I mean, don't you remember back in the Third War when the Blood Elves were imprisoned in Dalaran and were planning to be executed? The Kirin Tor didn't vouch for them then, so why should they help them now?
Kirin Tor. More like Kirin Snore, am I right?
Later on in the story, Lor'themar visits the High Elves who were exiled and tells them that, hey, the Sunwell has returned and that they're welcome back in Quel'Thalas. But the High Elves aren't particularly interested in returning. Also, Thanos Blightcaller, Sylvanas' undead boy toy, has been attacking them.
I am Sylvanas Windrunner, and I approve this message. I trust you will not waste my time.
back in Quel'Thalas, Sylvanas shows up and demands that the Blood Elves mobilize and venture to Northrend to fight against Arthas. Lor'themar says no because they still have problems here that need to be addressed, and the Banshee Queen counters by saying that if the Blood Elves don't help them, she'll pull out all Forsaken support from the Ghostlands. So, without much choice, Lor'themar orders the Blood Elves to get ready for war. And I guess they can help the Kirin Tor as well.
Yes!
This whole scenario warps Lor'themar's opinion of Sylvanas. Why is her boy toy attacking her former people? Does she really care about Quel'Thalas still? Or is her hellbent revenge against Arthas overpowering all of her other priorities? In life, Lor'themar looked up to the Ranger General Sylvanas as a role model. But now, can she even be trusted?
Working for Sylvanas has its challenges. Being dead has made her even bossier. But, do not tell her I said that.
Wrath of the Lich King happens, and the Blood Elves help in the war against the Lich King, and with the Blood Elves' help, Aethys Sunreaver is able to establish the Sunreavers in Dalaran. And these Sunreavers kind of work as the representation of the Horde in the city. Well, for now. More on that later. Okay, in the Cataclysm expansion, we are going back to Quel'Thalas, and the Horde and the Alliance are killing a whole lot of Amani trolls in Zul'Aman. I didn't mention it, but this is actually the second time that they've done this, because back during the Burning Crusade, we also raided Zul'Aman and killed Zul'Jin. And like I've mentioned, the Elves of Quel'Thalas have a long-running history with the Amani trolls. For Lor'themar, one of his most gruesome encounters was described in the Blood of the Highborn short, where Lor'themar and other elves were held captive by trolls and they had to escape. I narrated the entire passage of this action-packed part of the story, filled with sound effects and music, and you can listen to it right now by becoming a channel member here on YouTube or join my Patreon. Now it's the Mist of Pandaria, and Lor'themar is having second thoughts about joining the Horde, because the faction's new war chief, Garrosh Hellscream, has become a belligerent war criminal.
We Sindori were driven to the Horde by the bigotry and distrust of the Alliance. Now, I look at our war chief, and I begin to see the very same racism. He is willing to throw away our lives for his agenda. Know this, I won't stand idle if the Horde interests conflict with those of my people. I may reconsider old alliances.
What? Say that again!
Garrosh caught wind of this distaste in his leadership and made sure that any sort of betrayal would not come to pass.
That's what I thought.
During the expedition in Pandaria, the Alliance received a powerful artifact called the Divine Bell, and stored it in Darnassus. Garrosh orders that Horde mages perform a heist and steal the bell and teleport it to Dalaran to cover their tracks, then send it to Silvermoon. Now here's the thing, Garrosh does not care about this bell at all, really. Rather, the artifact is used as a tool to incite animosity between the Blood Elves and the Alliance, to ruin any possibility of the Blood Elves switching sides. The leader of the Kirin Tor at the time, Jaina Proudmoore, was committed to keeping Dalaran neutral in this Horde versus Alliance conflict. But she realizes the bell was teleported through Dalaran, which means it was most likely the Sunreavers who did this. A faction within Dalaran that was already controversial and are now directly aiding the genocidal leader of the Horde and getting Dalaran involved in the process. And to top it all off, this is just after Jaina's home was nuked by Garrosh, and she is pissed. So she commits the purging of Dalaran, killing or imprisoning every Sunreaver in the city. High Magister Romath and the player character respond by rescuing Aethys and the surviving Sunfury members and teleporting them to Silvermoon, and breaking the news of Jaina's retaliation to Lor'themar.
Aethys, you're alive.
A few of us made it out of there. Many more have been sent to the Violet Hold.
Anara Lashdanal. Will someone tell me what is going on in Dalaran?
Proudmoore. She's gone and expelled the Sunreavers from the city. She's purging the Horde from the Kirin Tor.
She's gone too far. I'm certain the Alliance can move their war mages through the city at will. That human witch! When will they learn?
When will they see that the Horde exists because of the Alliance? Because of their prejudice and their bigotry? They force us ever closer to Hellscream's Horde. Alduran, summon the Rangers. Romath, assemble the Blood Magi and add the Sun Reaver's strength to your own. We Sindori will take our future into our own hands. And get this damn thing out of my sight. Hellscream bought his treasure with the blood of my people. I hope it destroys him.
My lord, you would make a fine war chief.
It may come to that. Bring me my blades. The next move is mine.
Lor'themar and the Sun Reavers set out for the Isle of Thunder. Both the Sun Reavers and the Silver Covenant are there to stop the threat of the Thunder King and obtain powerful weaponry on the Isle and beat the crap out of each other in the process. The Shadow Pandaran are also there, trying and failing to be mediators in the conflicts between the two factions. One of the big reasons why Lor'themar set out for the Isle of Thunder was to obtain powerful weaponry to use as leverage against Warchief Garrosh. Also, apparently, no one else in the Horde is capable of dealing with this threat. So Lor'themar has to be the adult and get shit done.
This is who I am. No paperwork, no politics, just the hot fury of magic and steel. Press forward! We shape our own destiny today!
During the expedition on the Thundering Isle, Lor'themar and Horde players fight Mogu, Trolls, and Alliance. But during a skirmish at the gates of the Throne of Thunder, the aggression between the two faction leaders reaches its conclusion.
Proudmoore! You will release my people from the Violet Hold, or I will cut you down myself!
Hand over the Archmage, and I may yet allow you to walk out of here, Lor'themar! Your people are legitimate prisoners of war! They orchestrated an attack on Darnassus, from my city!
The Sun Reavers knew nothing of Garrosh's raid on Darnassus.
Enough! There will be no more bloodshed today!
I must protect my sovereign people.
They have undermined every attempt at peace!
Silence! The cycle ends when you, Regent Lord, and you, Lady Proudmoore, turn from one another and walk away.
Rangers, lower your weapons.
Very well. We will stand down. But know this, Blood Elf. There can be no peace while Hellscream is Warchief of the Horde.
That is precisely why I wish to conserve our strength today. Lady, gather the wounded. Withdraw to the harbor.
Everyone, regroup back at the camp. Our work here is done.
So Lor'themar and Jaina, despite their hatred for one another, realize that the real enemy is Garrosh. And by the end of the expansion, Alliance and Horde rebels siege the city of Orgrimmar and end the reign of the bloodthirsty warchief. And Lor'themar's role in the siege is to secure the shore with other faction leaders.
I can raise your dead, Regent Lord. Your rangers can fight again.
Sylvanas, you will leave our corpses alone, or I will deal with you here and now.
I'm sorry to see your lack of commitment. What of the human corpses?
Well, I suppose that's between you and the Alliance, isn't it?
Garrosh is defeated, the expansion ends, and Vol'jin becomes the warchief, and he's dead. Okay, now it's Legion, and Sylvanas is inexplicably the warchief. During Legion, players liberate the city of Suramar, and the Nightborn, a race of elves very similar to Blood Elves, but are purple, join the Horde. And around this time, Lor'themar gets a much-needed model update.
My eye patch has never switched sides. I mean, who would mix up something like that?
When the Nightborn join the Horde, Lor'themar invites their leader, First Arcanist Thalyssra, to Silvermoon. And also, Illyria Windrunner is there.
It is a pleasure to visit your fine city at last. Thank you for extending the invitation, Regent Lord.
Please, call me Lor'themar. But where are my manners? Allow me to introduce another guest. Lady Illyria Windrunner, a hero of Silvermoon's past.
During their meeting, Illyria Windrunner, filled with void magic, accidentally almost corrupts the Sunwell when the void energy within her lashes out. Clearly, she's too dangerous to have around in Silvermoon, so Lor'themar exiles her. If you want more info on how this all played out, you can check out my video on Illyria. And during the battle for Azeroth, the Horde and the Alliance are in an all-out war with one another. But then there's an even greater threat, so Lor'themar and Jaina need to set aside their differences to defeat Queen Azshara and then work together to revolt against the Horde's war chief, who has gone off the rails and wait a minute. I'm getting some deja vu here. And yeah, the lore gets crazy, and we go to the Shadowlands, and Lor'themar fully comes to the conclusion that Sylvanas is not the same woman that he knew when she was living.
I spent most of my life alongside the Windrunner family. Sylvanas was my hero, and my friend. But the Banshee who nearly led the Horde to ruin was neither.
But hey, who the hell cares, because Lor'themar is getting freaky. In the short story, A Moment in Verse, Lor'themar visits Suramar to go to a fancy event where he and First Arcanist Thalyssra will recite poetry. Later on, the two leaders are together in private. The Regent Lord learns to relax and take a break from his responsibilities, and enjoy some much-needed R&R. In fact, Haldoran and Romath play the roles of impeccable wingmen. Both Haldoran Brightwing and Romath had taken an unusual interest in his journey to Suramar. The words, "Go, you love-addled buffoon, or I will strangle you myself," might have left Romath's lips before Lor'themar departed. The tension between Lor'themar and Thalyssra creates one of the most saucy, romantically horny pieces of Warcraft media ever produced, which includes lines like, "He thought of her poem, the words lingering in his mind even if she didn't want them to last but a moment. Here I am, take my fingers to grasp the goblet. Take my lips to breathe your first air. Take my lips." Lor'themar intended to. His lips met hers, where wine and poetry lingered, and he felt, without hesitation, that he belonged there. And boom! Shadowlands happens, and there's a 5-year time skip in the lore from the end of that expansion to Dragonflight. In that time, Lor'themar ties the knot with Thalyssra in the short story Vow Eternal, and they have a wedding. But oh no! During the story, someone crashes their wedding. Who do you think it could be? Perhaps it's Darkon Drathir, who has come back from the dead. Members of the Legion, perhaps? Sylvanas loyalists? No, it's none of those. It's Kurog Grimtotem, the 6th boss of the Vault of the Incarnates raid. Which is so random it's hilarious. They tell him to scram, and Lor'themar and Thalyssra get married, and now our favorite Regent Lord has a tall, hot, purple wife.
Welcome to the Dragon Isles, adventurers.
Several years have passed quietly since our forces returned from the Shadowlands. But it seems that quiet is now at an end, my love.
Indeed. We were fortunate to have even a brief respite from the usual perils and tribulations. Otherwise, you might have come up with an excuse to refuse my proposal.
Your proposal? I am quite certain it was I who begged for your hand in marriage, Thalyssra.
Lor'themar Theron, you are such a creature of duty that you would have delayed our wedding over a crooked painting in Silvermoon. How fortunate I am that both our kingdoms witnessed our vows, else you might try to deny that we ever exchanged them.
Deny the happiest moments of my life? Never, whether under the light of the sun or the rays of the moon. I will love you for all my days, Thalyssra.
As I will love you, no matter how many dragons try to distract us.
The history of the Blood Elves is a mess. From near extinction to meddling in morally dubious practices and dealing with the chaos of being in the Horde. Time and time again, they've been met with crisis which has been narrowly avoided by their leadership. Lor'themar, Haldoran, and Romath are by no means perfect leaders, but the combination of their wisdom, pragmatism, and their unwavering hope for Quel'Thalas has led to the kingdom being able to persist after all these years.
Woo! Yes!
Okay, well, hopefully they can deal with this void stuff in Midnight as well. Don't forget that you can listen to the lore excerpt of Lor'themar and Friends escaping from the clutches of Zul'jin, along with hours of other narrated Warcraft lore content filled with music and sound effects by becoming a member here on YouTube. You can also listen to it on my Patreon, where you can additionally pay to have your WoW character immortalized at the end of each video.